So today I'm joined by our incredible client, Irin. We're going to hear a little bit more about her journey. But before we get into all that sort of stuff, thank you for joining me today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Irin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, I am a former high school teacher. So, I was in the teaching profession, and an opportunity came about for me to start educating in a business context and from the business side of things. So, I now work with individuals who are looking to grow their business. So, I help people network. And I connect them and give them tools and strategies on how to do that. So, used to be face to face is what we've been doing for many years. But with everything that happened back in March with COVID, we quickly transitioned to an online platform. So we're eyeball to eyeball instead of being shoulder to shoulder.
That means you're working from home right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is my zone that I'm usually in. I've got my nice setup here with a couple of monitors. So lots of working from home. So definitely not as much face to face interaction as I'm used to having and as I like having, but just within these four walls now.
How do you find that? Because I always get the impression whenever we talk, you're a very sociable individual, right? So has that impacted you in any way?
So it's definitely been an adjustment because I thrive off of that interaction and off of others' energy. So being around that and being online now and having more phone conversations or more Zoom meetings, it's there's not as much energy there to feed off of and to be able to interact with. So it has been an adjustment for me and not being able to see the regular group of individuals that I would see on a regular basis. But it's also allowed me in the same respect to make an adjustment and start to really figure out what I want and what I can do for myself, to be able to make time for me.
Well, that's pretty important. I know we're going to come on to that as part of this conversation today. But I'll just say that you're probably bringing the extra energy to those conversations now. Like when we first spoke, we talked a lot over the phone. So we didn't do a lot of face-to-face when we initially spoke. And I've changed that now about how we operate. I do all of our calls via Zoom. And that's kind of born of what's happened recently with lockdown. I wanted to get a bit more like a personal face-to-face relationship. So there's lots of things that we've experienced in this time, but what I get from you is you're becoming very much solution focused. So whether it's meeting people via obviously online platforms instead of one-to-one, the way that you guys are operating, the way that you're working, you're adapting fully to this. And even working from home, like making it around the things that you need to tick off on a day-to-day basis to make you happy and then incorporating that as part of your process. But we'll definitely get into that because I know that wasn't the case when we first started, right?
No, it wasn't at all.
Well, let's talk about that. How was it when you first started? In fact, let's take a step back. What caused you to reach out to me personally and book in that first call?
So I've been following you on social media for quite some time, seeing your Instagram posts, and what really resonated with me was how authentic and genuine they were, and it wasn't a quick fix or do this for 30 days and you'll have these huge gains or losses and weight loss and all that. So it was very authentic and very real and applicable. Like you weren't asking for me to completely do an entire overhaul of my life to be able to make changes, and it was all very real stuff, small increments that you talk about just like within your posts that you have. So that really appealed to me because of, I keep coming back to it, that authenticity. They were just real posts. And so I remember reaching out on a few and commenting and just having a quick conversation with you. And one thing that I realized when we went online from a work perspective in March was that I've got a little bit more flexibility now compared to what I had before in terms of time. And I had the ability now to do a reset and to do a level up of sorts. So that was kind of the push for me, is I knew that I needed to make changes for myself for a multitude of reasons. And if it wasn't going to happen now with like the world in flux and everything changing, I didn't know when it would happen. So that's why, it did take me a little while to reach out, but within a couple months I'd reached out and said, okay, you know what, I'm ready to have that next conversation and see what this looks like for me.
What were the things that you recognized that you didn't like about what was going on with yourself at that point? Because you mentioned there were a few things that you were unhappy with. Are they things that you're comfortable in sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. So For me, it's a lot of scheduling. So with what I do, as much as I like for it to be a 9 to 5, it often flows outside of that, just because of the different projects that I'm working on, and the different areas that I'm looking to develop. So my days were, it's not unusual for me to have a 12-hour day, add in, an hour commute in the morning, an hour commute in the evening. It's an extensive, lengthy day. But what I wasn't doing was carving time up for myself to do anything. So, once or twice a week, I might do yoga, like at the office, or might take my running shoes and go for a walk. But it was an add-on. It wasn't the priority for me. And that's where I was like, you know what, I'd actually need to start building in time for me. And even to, like, it's a work in progress to this day. It's still something that I'm working on, but that was the turning point for me, is I needed to make a change there and make time for me. I always was, my energy was always rock bottom, and others would notice. I'd always be complaining about how tired I was. And like, even on the commute home from work, just the struggle to stay awake some days is just, A, it's not safe, and B, it's not healthy. Like, that wasn't what I wanted, and I knew something needed to give.
Did you feel like you were almost surviving instead of thriving at that point?
Yeah, that was done. Yes, absolutely. And that's the perfect way to describe it. Is I knew that there's, other areas from a business perspective, personal perspective, I needed to level up, but none of that was going to happen until I started making changes for myself. And that was the gap, is identifying the goals that I wanted to reach in other areas was fantastic, but I never had the goals for me that I was actually taking action on to achieve.
I actually remember when we talked about, well, what do you want to achieve? And we were talking about things like weight loss and feeling that energy back. And then we had that one moment where we connected it to that bigger vision that you have for yourself. And I just feel that just kind of really brought things together and connected the dots for you, and then potentially brought that energy to this process as well, right? Are you willing to share that big vision? Because I love that vision.
For sure. So for me, in what I do, being in front of others and working with such fantastic entrepreneurs and business people in the community, it's for me, it's having that confidence to be able to get up. And I shared with you my vision that I want to be on a big stage one day, and I've even got it on my vision board. I've got, a picture of a giant stage and a room full of 500, 600, even 1,000 people. That's my vision, and that's what I want to get to. But there's always been stuff that's holding me back, and confidence was a large part of that. That's not necessarily confidence in what I do. It's just confidence in the ability to stand up in front of such a large crowd and have that conviction in what I'm doing. I mean, from a young age, like I've been used to having a platform where I've, been in front of others, delivered messages, and individuals often say to me, like after training sessions that I run, they say, "Oh my gosh, you're so dynamic at the front of the room. How do you do it?" But I realized I was hitting a stall, and my comfort at the front of a room with 30, 40, even 100 people, it comes from being here for so long, like being a teacher, now being an educator of business people. Like, that's where my comfort comes from. But there was an obstacle that I needed to overcome, and that's, having more confidence. And I think this is a huge stepping stone in helping me get to that goal.
How did it feel? Because I mean, whenever somebody reaches out to me, I'm always really grateful, because it's almost showing a vulnerability to somebody that you don't really know. Like, this is an online world. You didn't really know me. Obviously, you'd seen what I'd been posting and what I've been sharing. But I'm always really grateful that people feel able to be vulnerable in that sense. Did that take a lot of courage?
Yes, it did. It is a big step. And I mean, doing what I do, working with individuals, like everything we do is based on word of mouth referrals. So for me to go to someone outside of what my traditional network is, it is a big step. And it was almost more of a comfort knowing how approachable you were and how open you were to having conversations and how easy you were to speak to and ask questions of. That was what made it so much easier. And for me, I'm of the mindset there are certain things that, as much as I want to support like my local clients and and businesses that I'm working with, there's certain things that I need to stay a little bit at arm's length for, if I can say that. And this is one of those. And it made it so much easier because you are so easy to talk to and to ask questions of. And I even said to you at one point, like, I'm asking a ton of questions right now. I'm not going to be this high maintenance, I promise, because we look at behavioral styles. I need the information to be able to make a decision. And And that's one of the things, like, you were so patient in answering the questions, and that just makes it so much more easy to open up to yourself, and even to Ruby when when I have questions, or when something's really bugging me, it's diving deep into what that is. You've both made it so easy to approach you and to have those discussions.
That's so beautiful. I really, really appreciate that as well, because this is a two-way street. Whenever it comes to coaching, like, communication is one of the top things that I think I say it on pretty much every call that I have. Communicate, communicate, communicate. So when you reach out and ask those questions, that was a really good sign for me, a really positive sign that you were going to be able to actually implement what we were asking you to do. And I know that you want to understand the reasonings behind things rather than just putting them into action. Yeah. So it's nice to see that the conjunction of those two things together are actually realizing results for you. So do you mind actually sharing what have you achieved in the last kind of 12 weeks, like your first phase with us?
So a lot. I've achieved quite a lot. So it's interesting because it's smaller changes that you've encouraged me to do along the way, but they've had such a huge impact, which for me is the biggest thing. So one of the integral things that we started off with was sleep, right? Getting that regular sleep pattern, getting that minimum number of hours, getting enough sleep in the day. That for me was huge because sleep was never always a priority. So now it's, if I know I need to be up at 5, what time do I need to go to bed by to be able to get that number of hours? Or if I have a little bit of flexibility to lie in, what time am I giving myself that extra buffer time before bed? But it's creating the routine. And that's one of the first things that Ruby had me do, is just build out a routine. Here's my morning routine. Here's my evening routine. So from a personal perspective, it was huge because I was getting more rest. I was more restful when I woke up, a little bit more energized as well. So that's a huge one. And it also, because I have a routine in the morning and evenings, it really streamlined what I was doing, and it got rid of, without you actually saying, hey, you need to cut back on the stuff that's not serving you, it actually got rid of the stuff that wasn't serving me, right? Like, I don't need to be on social media for half an hour before bed each night. There's certain times in the day that I do that because you help me structure it into my routine. So that's huge. The other thing that has been non-existent on my calendar, and I think I actually sent you a screenshot of my calendar a couple times, was Irin's time was never on there. And that's now appeared every single day, twice a day. There's times where I block off, this is Irin's time. If I need to shift it an hour earlier or later, I do that, but that's a non-negotiable for me. Like, I need my time during the day to focus on me. And that never existed before. And neither did, like, actually stopping for lunch and taking a breath and eating, stepping away from the desk, not multitasking. So those, like, building in that structured time for lunch or a snack, it sounds really small, but those are significant changes for me, because what that helped me do was be more excited about the time that I'm spending on myself. So Irin's time is, I could just sit and enjoy, a cup of tea on the back porch, or sit outside and just enjoy the weather. So it could be that, or it's when I do my workout, when I go for my walk. Just it's making sure that I'm getting that in. And from someone who only used to go for a walk like once or twice a week to now doing it every single day is huge, right? So yeah, that's been significant for me. And it's those that each led up to the physical transformation as well, like my stats, resting heart rate, lower blood pressure, all of that's great and on its way to be even better. And even from a weight perspective, having dropped as much weight as I have and being comfortable in my clothes now, like I'm not flipping through my wardrobe in the morning going, well, I don't want to wear that because it doesn't fit right. It's, hey, I can wear this because it fits phenomenally. And pretty sure I've dropped a few pictures of that into our chat too. So it's exciting.
Well, absolutely. And I think this is the beauty of it, because what we just talked about, it would have been easy to go straight into the physical changes that you've made. But you respect all the other changes so much because that's led to the physical. And I think this is sometimes where we need to get that right, is making yourself a priority in your own life will then lead on to what you really want to achieve. Most people join this process with a weight loss goal, a dress size that they want to get into, but they don't actually find the time to make themselves a priority. So that never really happens. And I find it beautiful that you actually went in on that angle instead of talking about the physical first. By the way, like, is this the first time you've ever tried to drop body fat or lose weight or get healthier?
Definitely not. So I think the deciding, one of the deciding factors for me was a post that you shared about like the shakes or the, you know, the 30-day fixes. So I have done those in the past, and you know, they are what they are. You spend your money, you do your 30-day shake, you cut out everything, you drop a bunch of weight, and then for me, it felt like as soon as I looked at the foods that I enjoyed again, I suddenly, you know, was gaining the weight back. So that initial weight loss was fantastic. Felt really great when people would say, "Oh my gosh, look what you've done," and then it's like, "Oh, you just gained the weight back again." So this has truly been different for me because and I keep saying that, and I don't think I can vocalize it as clearly as I want to everyone who asks, but this is different because it's been such a lifestyle change for me, and it's realistic. It's implementing changes that I know that I'll be able to continue. And the great thing is, like, you didn't ask me to do anything considerably drastic. Like, if I want the chocolate, I have the chocolate, right? If I want a handful of crisps, I'll have the handful of crisps. I don't feel as though I'm going without anything, and I don't feel as though I'm at a loss. So I know that I'm not going to rebound them. There's nothing to rebound from, right? I haven't cut anything out. It's just approaching things from a different angle. And like, the one thing that I've noticed as restrictions are starting to ease, and as I'm starting to, you know, go out with friends and go out with mates again and meet up and, you know, go to the cottage, I can still enjoy that experience, which they very much are often centered around food. I don't feel like I'm missing out. I'm not sitting there looking longingly at the crisps on the table. I have a handful, and then I have, like, you know, something healthy as well, and balance. It's all about balancing it out. But what's really big for me is a friend of mine who has been here with me, like, we've known each other for many years now, who has seen me do the shakes along the way. And we've traveled together, and it was at the time where I was, one of the times where we went to a cottage, and I was having the shakes in the morning for breakfast and for lunch. And we went away that time, and we went away just a few weeks ago, and she said, "This is so much different, Irin. Like, you just are so much happier, and I'm so much happier for you that you're not sitting there drinking just, you know, a couple shakes in a day to get to where you want. You're enjoying your food, and you're having fun with it." And even she said, it seems so much more different.
That's so powerful. And this is your friend that you've set that running goal with, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. So one of my goals that you and Ruby are helping me get towards is I would like to run 5K continuously and not stop. So it's something that I did many years ago, and I want to be able to get back to, but I know that I've tried to do it on my own, and it's just not happening. So both of you are helping me get to that. And then we've set a goal, our target date. So I sent my friend a message and said, "Hey, want to go for a 5K run in November? Because this is what we're going to do." So we've got the date booked off, and we're both going to go. Because that's the other thing I find is surrounding yourself by individuals who have those similar goals, who can help you get to where you want to go. It's really great. It's that like-minded individual that you bring in, because it's so much more supportive and easier that way.
I love that. And I think the other thing is, obviously with the running goal, there was a reason that we weren't running a lot to begin with, right? I think you were going through various forms of pain that we've been working on. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes. So there's a couple different things that I was experiencing when I was running, which is why I backed away from it. So one was calf pain. Like, my calves would start hurting right away. So I actually experienced that with some of the workouts that I did, because I realized that I didn't have, like, the right form. And you guys were fantastic. Henry the magician, truly is a magician, gave me some strategies on how to deal with that. But the bigger thing for me was, for the past, I want to say 3.5 years or so, have been experiencing pelvic pain that no one can figure out what it is. Gone to, my family doctor, gone to specialists, and nobody quite can figure out what the cause is. And I'm often given Band-Aid solutions, like, "Oh, you should try, maybe try this, try." The last conversation I had with the specialist was, there were 4 different types of essentially birth control that were recommended to, because they think it's gynecological. Try these and see how it goes. And so at one point in the conversation, I said, "Okay, I can try them, but will they actually work?" "Well, there's a 50% chance it might, 50% chance it might not. So give it a try. Like, it's really going to be trial and error." And that wasn't good enough for me. Like, I don't understand this. And I mean, at one point it was even suggested, perhaps pregnancy will help make the pain go away. And I was like, how is this an actual recommendation from a professional that I'm getting? Like, how is that the solution to the pain? Get pregnant and maybe it'll go away. Like, it was mind-boggling that. and frustrating that I was experiencing it. And it was getting elevated when I was running, and like even when I was sitting during the day, it was constantly there. I was taking painkillers quite often on some days just to alleviate the pain. But having started working with you, whether it's a combination of diet, exercise, getting moving again, the stretches that you recommended, all of that bundled together has now eliminated the pain. And I managed to start running again, and didn't experience that pain. So I remember saying to you, I don't quite know which of that combination of things fixed it, but now I have to keep all of them out. Got to keep all of them going, right?
Look, I'm just glad that you see it as it is a combination. All of these things work in conjunction to make that happen. And I just think it's really, really cool that we're not like pinpointing it on, oh, well, there was one exercise that fixed it all, because it isn't that the case, right?
Yeah.
And I guess people are probably going to be wondering, like, clearly you've got an accent compared to my accent, right? So whereabouts are you based?
So just outside of Toronto, Canada, so in a town called Cambridge. For any of you who do watch, we're quite famous for TV serials and movies getting filmed here, because it's quite a European style city that we live in. So anyone who's familiar with Handmaid's Tale, that's filmed in Cambridge, not far from where I am.
I think because people are going to be wondering, like, well, how do we do it with you guys, with you based over there, I'm based here, Henry's based here, and Ruby's based in Australia. So how does it all come together? How does it work for you?
Well, and that's interesting, because that was one of the questions that I had for you when we first connected, was how does that even work? So it's fantastic just being able to communicate through WhatsApp. So messaging back and forth that way. Ruby and I have our regular check-ins that are on the calendar. So we found a time that works well for both of our schedules, which is great. And just making use of WhatsApp calls and WhatsApp video calls in particular when connecting with Henry. But never have I experienced someone like that can connect with you over video chat and determine what your issue is with any support that you might need and provide the solution. So Henry's really great at connecting that way through a virtual platform, which is fantastic. But in terms of us staying connected, I previously was of the mindset that, yeah, you do need to have that face-to-face interaction for this type of journey. But I quickly learned that wasn't the case. And if anything, it's more supportive, because I can send a message and know, within a few hours, one of you will get back to me and you'll have an answer for any of my questions. And I think it actually almost works well with our time differences, because we're able to connect so easily.
I love that. And also, because a lot of people ask me that question, like, how does it all work if it's online? Do I need to be with you and take you through the session, all that sort of stuff? But in fact, you've been sending videos through, getting video feedback. And I think even one of the beautiful things that I love about our community as a whole is we all come together in that Facebook group and we have these little conversations. And I know I'm doing my monthly calls where we will get together and we just share best practice within the journey too. So that's just amazing. I like the way that you've integrated yourself into all these different elements and you use them in the best possible way, like communicating as effectively as you can. And I guess that also comes from the fact that, you were a teacher at one point, you're an educator still, and I think you've still got that ability to just really, really utilize the tools and the platforms that are available to you. I think it's an amazing skill to have. I wish we could get you to come and teach everyone the art of communication. I guess right now it'd be really cool to just get to understand, like, how do you feel right now? I think we've talked about like where you were. We've talked about like successes along the journey, but how do you really feel right now? What's coming up next for you?
I feel amazing. It's incredible, just the changes that I'm seeing in myself, the confidence and the ability to just continue pushing myself further. So that's been huge for me, but I'm also having others recognize it too. And one of the things that I often say is, when we meet online and when we meet through Zoom, it is very much a one-way energy transfer, right? Like if you're in a room full of people, it's so much easier to feed off that energy. Like I was mentioning before, you get that energy back to you with that interaction. And Zoom, it's such a one-way energy transfer. But I've had people saying, oh my gosh, Irin, like we're seeing a huge difference in energy over the past couple months. Like, what are you doing differently? How do you still have this much energy after being on Zoom for 6 months straight? So, I mean, that's fantastic. I haven't really been told growing up that I'm a quiet person or that I have a quiet voice, but when there's others in the house, when I'm on my Zoom calls, they'll say, wow, you're so loud. Like we can hear you upstairs and we can hear you in the next room. But that's the thing. It's that boost in energy. I don't feel exhausted anymore. And I truly feel as though I'm honoring myself and giving myself the time that I need and putting that effort and energy into where it needs to go. And I'm confident that with these changes that I've made, it's going to help push me further in all other aspects as well.
I just keep thinking about the 1,000 people in that room that are just going to learn so much from you, take so much from you. And that energy transfer is definitely going to be there then. I guess, you know what, this really leads me on to like, I guess the final question from me, and I'm sure that you'll have some pros and thoughts as well, but what advice would you give to other people? So imagine like 12, 13 weeks ago when we first interacted, like what advice would you give to that person? What advice would you give to yourself back then?
That's a really good question. So I think definitely would start off with figuring out your why. Why is this important to you? And just really hammering down to what that is. And our initial conversation over the phone, you helped me do that. You asked the questions and it was just, yeah, but why? And drilling down deeper and deeper and deeper. So it's coming back to what the why is for you and what you really seek to achieve from spending more time on yourself, right? So all of the other physical stuff that comes to me, it's an added bonus. It's all of the other changes that are so much more significant for me. It's almost as though we flipped it on its head, right? So many people will start a fitness and a lifestyle journey because they want to reach a particular physical goal. But I think although that might be the reason for achieving it, it truly is flipped because it's all of the other stuff that comes with it that's so huge. So it's really getting down to why you want to do it. I think that's huge. Investing in yourself, and I'm not talking the monetary investment, I'm talking the time investment and the truly honoring yourself and figuring out what you're doing for yourself in each day. And more than a few times, you've mentioned that, you know, when we say, oh, I don't need to do this today, I don't need to do my workout today, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll get to it, and it just keeps getting bumped day after day. What are you saying about how much you value yourself and how much you're willing to put into yourself? I think that's a big one that often gets missed, right? So it's keeping in mind that like you've got to put yourself first because no one else is going to at the end of the day. And I actually have one of the things that you had dropped in, I believe it was in our group chat, and it was about, you know, time and time again, we show up for everyone else. You show up as a daughter, you show up as a boss, as a sister, as a sibling, whatever, you're showing up. But when you truly start to show up for yourself, that's the game changer. I'm paraphrasing. I have it written word for word right here, but I'm paraphrasing. But it's true, right? It's showing up for yourself. I think that's the other really big thing. I think that was 2. So the third one would be just take the step, because often we don't make decisions because we're fearful or we're you know, apprehensive because of the uncertainty. I think this is one thing that if it's yourself that you're putting it into, then it's totally worth it.
Look, I put you on the spot with that. And you answered those questions absolutely beautifully. And I think those final three points there, I think that would really resonate with a lot of people. Sometimes, you know, it's nice to hear that some of my words land and my phrases land, but it's because I see that time and time again. So many people showing up for everybody else and never really giving it back to themselves. And like we've just said today, nobody's going to come and do this for you. You've got to go and meet it. You've got to go and meet that goal at least halfway if you want to see true success. But I'm really, really grateful for your time today. Is there anything else that you'd want to add to this conversation?
Well, I just want to say thank you for what you've created and what you're doing. You've got a phenomenal team of individuals around you. Ruby has been absolutely great as well on the journey, really instrumental to where I've come up until this point. I know she's going to be fantastic in helping me get to my next goals and beyond as well. But the community that you've created is truly phenomenal. And there's some days where, you know, we've got our group chat going that if I haven't checked it in a couple hours, I'm like, oh, geez, I just missed out on a couple conversations there. But there's so much excitement and engagement to follow up on. Like, it's absolutely great. And being able to connect with others who have taken this step and who are investing in themselves, it's huge. So thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, I don't take compliments very well, but I'll take that one. I appreciate it. There's obviously a lot of work goes into this, and it's all about the passion and giving as much back to you guys as humanly possible, just to make sure you've got every angle covered, and we're not leaving anything en masse. Like, we want to go after this goal for you, with you, and obviously bring everybody else together at the same time. This is all about leaving legacy. If I can support you, you're going to support the 5 to 10 people around you, and it's just going to snowball and grow in that effect. But look, I really appreciate it. Thank you again for your time. I'm really looking forward to sharing this.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to phase 2.
Me too.
Take care, all right?